Do you want to invest in real estate, but maybe your partner does not? If so, let's talk today about how we can have our family involved in real estate or what to do when we do not want our family involved in investing in real estate. So, welcome back to today's episode. This came actually from a very popular question within our Lady Landlords Facebook community. Clearly, we have a lot of women in there, and we often have conversations about those that are doing this on their own, those that are doing it with partners, and those that have partners that do not want to be involved at all. Now, I fall into that category of someone that is married. I do have my partner, and my husband actually does want to be involved. And listen, that comes with its own set of challenges, which we'll get into. But it has been interesting to have somebody else that I can talk to about this, get excited about this with, bounce ideas off with, everything like that. And I understand that there are other members that want to get out there and be able to have that partner. Now, when we say partner, listen, this could be a romantic partner, or this can just be somebody else in your life that you want to make sure that you have somebody else alongside with you. There is nothing wrong with partnering up with another lady landlord, with a friend, with a different family member besides your partner or your marital partner. Okay. So we can use that word however you see it fit within your life. But the first thing that comes up is we get a lot of questions about like, oh, how can I get my husband or my wife on board? And my biggest piece of advice with that would be to not force them at all. When we got into real estate, it was actually my husband, Emilio, that really wanted to get into his first house. My husband had immigrated from the Dominican Republic to the United States when he was about 18 years old, very much wanted that American dream, very much want to own his own home. That was the biggest part of it. So at first, it was at least Emilio that said, hey, I think we should stop renting in New York City. I think we should be able to buy a home. And to be honest, I was the one that was absolutely not sold on it. I like convenience. I was like, no, this is great. Something breaks, I get to call somebody else. I still get to go deal with my life. I don't have to be the one to pay for these things that get fixed. I don't have to deal with these things to get fixed. But also, if you've heard my story from previous episodes here, I'd actually just come back from living in Europe where I'd lost a business there, moved back to the United States, and I was in really bad financial shape. I did not have the money for a down payment. My credit was completely ruined. I was in horrible debt, and I worked really hard for years to be able to get out of that. One, part of me was like, no one's even going to approve me for a loan. So buying a house never really even seemed like an option. And then two, as I was working my way out of that bad financial position, I was like, I've done so much work to get out of that. I don't want to take a loan. I don't want to commit myself to that. Especially we're talking New York City here. Properties like start at, $500,000. So this to me was very scary to kind of look into that. But as you do in relationships, you kind of compromise. I was saying, okay, I can help support my husband's dream of home ownership, but I was the one that really said, hey, I think we should buy a multifamily. I think we should have another set of tenants that can help offset some of that cost. To me, it would be very helpful to know that the full mortgage wasn't relying on just Emilio and myself, but really we had other tenants there that would be contributing to that mortgage. So that was actually how we got started. Then roles really reversed. After that first property, I literally at the closing table, when I got paid for that first set of tenants in that duplex that we bought back in 2018, I was like, this is fantastic. I get paid to have somebody else living in this property. This is fantastic. I'm doing this again. And as my husband, that was really like, no. I just want to buy your own home. We weren't looking to become real estate investors. This wasn't something that he was really thinking about. And to be honest, that very first property we had a bunch of problems. We had leaks that we discovered that were running through the house. It was like day 2 or day 3 after we closed that there was actually water running through in the house, but it was actually going through the electric panel. We're city kids. Like we now all of a sudden have a house and we're like, do we call a plumber? Do we call an electrician? We didn't even know either of those people anyway. So even if we knew which one to call, we didn't actually know any of those people. Honestly, I think the first thing I did was call my mother. That was just my natural reaction of where to go. But I felt like at the very beginning, after we closed on that house, my husband almost kind of fell into a little bit of a depression because I felt like it was his dream to be able to buy this house and have that home ownership here in the United States. And then now all of a sudden we had so many problems at the beginning. So now when I said like, hey, we need to buy another rental property, I think he was just so turned off by the idea. So he wasn't on board completely with continuing to grow. And over the years, we now have 16 rental properties, 7 years later here almost. And still, I feel like every time we buy a property, my husband's like, okay, that's it. This is the last one. We're not going to buy anymore, or we're not going to buy for a really long time. And I'm kind of the one that's like, yeah, no, absolutely. No, we'll take a break. And then meanwhile, I'm back on my MLS portal like the next day already looking for properties. But I think it was important to for me, instead of forcing him and being like, why aren't you on board? Why aren't you doing the things that I'm doing? Why aren't you as involved or care about this as much as me? I kind of went a little bit of a different way. And here's what I personally did. One, I said, listen, if he doesn't want to be involved, that's fine, as long as he is still supportive of my goals and really what I wanted to do. So as long as he was okay with me still being able to move forward, I really saw it as me just kind of taking a little bit more of a leadership role in that space. And then with that, I decided to be able to at least show my partner what I was doing. And I really kept him in the loop. And that was something that I made sure to include him when we were going for showings, or even though my responsibilities and the way that we really delegate things within our business, not just our marriage, but in really our real estate business now, is I tend to handle more of the legal side and the finance side of things. But we still communicated when there were showings that I wanted to go see, when we were getting pre-approved, when I was running numbers and what those things look like. And I think by showing him not only that I was excited, but that there are opportunities that we're able to move forward, I felt like he started to kind of join in a little bit more, or he started to ask more questions. And over the years, his questions really changed. He became more knowledgeable and was taking more ownership in it. Also, within that, I always kept him in the loop. And this is something that, if he didn't want to hear about, if it wasn't something he wanted to be a part of, that was also perfectly okay. Once again, as long as he was supportive of what I wanted to do and how I was going to move forward either way. But being able to still include him, I think was really helpful because it kind of got him excited in a couple different ways. I often would kind of share, especially when I was still working in cancer research at the time. I worked in cancer research for about the first half of building this portfolio, and then was able, once I replaced my income, to go full time in real estate. But as I was working full time, and I did have a very busy career within cancer research, and I did make a very good income within that, I feel like my husband often questioned, like, well, why are you doing all this extra work? Or you had your full day at your day job, and now all of a sudden you're going to network events in the evenings, or you're spending your weekends going to showings, or you're calling, during your lunch break to talk to different contractors or check on different rehabs and all those things. And I felt like what my role was also sharing a bit of a vision of what I wanted for our lives. And I think by explaining to him just why it was so important to me was actually really helpful. So my reason for doing this was I wanted options. I wanted time freedom. I wanted to say, cool, if I want to continue in cancer research, I can. If I wanted to switch to another company or a different role within the company that may be paid differently, I could still do those things because I knew that our family was going to still be supported by real estate. If I wanted to stop working, I could do that. I wanted to make sure that whatever it was that I wanted to be able to do, I wanted to make sure that we still were going to be financially secure. One of my main goals was I wanted to move abroad again. And I wanted to be able to move abroad in a way that I was actually financially stable, because the first time I was not. And like I said, I lost a ton of money, had to move back to the States, and was totally broke. So for me, it was really important to make sure that when I went and moved abroad again, that I was in a place where I didn't have to backtrack, or that I could take a financial hit and still keep going and not kind of have to lick my wounds and come back home to the States. So I think by kind of sharing that vision with him, and then let me be honest, ladies, it took years, years to get my husband on board with how I saw our future and what that looked like. And to be honest, sometimes even now, 7 years later, I still feel like I'm reminding him of those things or talking him through still that vision. And I'm okay with that because it's my vision. But once again, if he's still supportive and open to that, I feel like now he has more ownership in it. He understands what we're working towards. He's willing to kind of chip in a lot more. And really, in this place that I feel like we are in 2025, when it comes to our real estate business, we are partners. We have our own kind of delegated roles, which I've talked about here in other podcast episodes before. But I feel like it was really important to get to that spot where I do feel very much that we have that 50-50 type space, which is really kind of cool because I know that's not every relationship out there. So I think it's something to really make sure that you can communicate with your partner why it's important and also ask them, what role, if any, do you see in us growing a real estate portfolio? And all because they give you a certain answer at one point in time does not necessarily mean that that's not going to change over time. I will say probably, and I hope he doesn't listen to this episode, but one of my absolute favorite things is either after we close or just randomly when my husband will make a post on like his Instagram, sharing about just how happy he is with what we've done in real estate, or you could see when he's so proud, even when he talks to like other people and he'll tell people we have rental properties, he just has that glow and you could see how proud he is. And that to me is actually winning. That to me, it absolutely melts my heart, let's be honest. But it makes me just so happy to see his involvement in the place that we were able to get to within our relationship here, within investing as partners. But I understand that's not going to be the case for absolutely everybody, but that is something that if you want to think about it, have that open conversation about what your goals are, what your relationship's supposed to look like moving forward, and make sure then that you decide what roles people are going to have in the relationship. My husband and I have a weekly financial meeting. And we also do goal setting throughout the year, especially at the end of the year, kind of vision boarding for what the next year is going to look like. And it's really important to share that and make sure that both people's goals, both people's visions are actually included in what your future looks like. Second way to kind of get your family involved is thinking about kids. Now, this is something I know so many of our lady landlords really got interested in investing in real estate because they want to be able to leave a legacy, that generational wealth, to be able to pass something down to your kids. But here now is your opportunity to be a role model for your children. And it's a great opportunity to also expose them to what you are doing, whether if it's still having real estate as just a side hustle on the side of your full-time job, if you're part-time in real estate, or if you're even full-time. It does not matter. But think about what that vision is. How do you want to have your kids included? Then think about what age appropriate activities you can include them in. I think it's so cool. We have a lot of lady landlords that will share pictures of their children that are either checking out, going to showings with them and checking out different locations, or sometimes helping clean a unit between turnover, right? Sometimes it's even a little bit easier to get a kid to probably come out and clean an investment rather than their own room because they've seen you, they see what you're growing, they see that you're doing something really for the family and they want to be able to support that and be a part of it. One other thing, just as a little extra added bonus here, ladies, do make sure to talk to your accountant about how your kids can actually be a part of that business. Not just your partner, but also your children. There are some very interesting tax benefits. There are some very interesting ways to be able to get your children on payroll, to be able to take advantage of and set up retirement plans for your children, even at a younger age. And really, those are great ways to also think about what you can financially do for your business in addition to them being that role model that you want to be and what you want your kids to be able to see at that point in time. So just something to really kind of start thinking about there. We did an episode a while ago all about tax strategy for real estate investors. I'm going to link that down in the show notes for you there, but great opportunity to see how you can not only get your kids involved in real estate, but also what benefits do you get to them? And that could be something if they are still younger and under the age of 10, or if you're having teenagers, how to really include them in that versus, now if they're over the age of 18 and you want to start having them also set up their real estate investing portfolio or have them house hack. There's so many different ways that you can really get them included. So same kind of thing. My recommendation personally would probably not to be force anybody there, but when you get somebody exposed to something, they then now get to have that decision on if they want to participate or not. The younger they are and the more that they get to see their mom going after their dream, after their goals, is going to continue to inspire them as they really get older. Now, you might be saying, okay, don't have kids, Becky. Hey, I don't have a romantic partner. I don't have a business partner. What else can I kind of do to get family and friends involved? This is something I want you to kind of think long and hard about, okay? We've talked all the time in the Lady Landlords Facebook group about all those different horror stories that you hear about when either renting to family and friends, going into business with family or friends. So do think about that. Okay. Do think about if that's something that you want to go through. There are millions and millions and millions of people in this world. Deciding that you're going to work with your brother or your sister might not be the answer to things. Okay. You might want to find somebody a couple different degrees separated here. If you decide that you are going to work with family or friends, and that could either be buying properties, using them as a private money lender, whatever that looks like, you want to make sure that if you are going to do it, here are my recommendations for you. Regardless if it's partnering up with them or even just leasing one of your rentals to them, always get a good contract. To be willing to either lose money or to lose that family member or friend. Okay. Those are two things to be able just to think about and say, hey, if this deal doesn't go right, or if my mother-in-law moves in and never pays me rent, how is that going to impact next year's Thanksgiving? Right? Are those things that I'm going to be able to just kind of wash away and say, hey, I feel good. I was able to help somebody in a situation. Fine, I didn't get paid the way that I was expecting, but you know what? I feel like I did a good deed. Or are you going to sit there and really have some issues holding that fork and knife in your hand, looking across that table? If you were in that second position, then this is not a direction to go. Like I said, there are so many millions of other people that you can get in contact with to be able to partner up with. So, like I said, if you want to partner with friends or family, good contract in place, make sure you both understand the risks of that and either be willing to lose that family or friend member or be willing to lose money. Okay. If you have to go that way, like I said, to me, probably ways that you want to be able to stay separate. Second piece of this is what's really interesting when it comes to family and friends is I noticed in a lot of private money lending circles. Now, as a reminder to all of our listeners out there, private money lending is when you approach a person you personally know, okay, to be able to have funds to go invest. All right. A lot of times I see the terms private money lending and hard money lending confused. So let's separate those. Hard money lending. Hard money lending is when you actually work with a business, a hard money lender that has their own criteria, their own setup that will be lending you money almost always for a flip for some type of project that's going to need work with that you are paying them back the agreed upon interest. A private money lender is a person that you personally know. It might be a friend of a friend of a friend, but that's still somebody that you're connected to personally, right? They would give you money for that property. You can negotiate pretty much everything with that person to be able to pay them back. It is a very, very great way to start using other people's money to start to invest. Okay, so we can talk all the time in Lady Landlords about, well, I have to put down 25% down. How can I keep scaling at 25% down? Well, you don't come up with that money. You use other people's money to be able to invest. Great opportunity. But I see in so many different circles, especially like in the Instagram world here, that it's always like, oh, well, go prospect your friends and family. And I got to be honest, it reminds me of like multi-level marketing. It reminds me of like the very like sketchy, like start with your circle, get them to give you money first, kind of put them into a pyramid scheme and then kind of keep moving on. No, we don't want to do that. Same thing. It's a great opportunity to speak about the things that you do, share the things that you do, but let's not get into a position where same thing. Now all of a sudden you have a friend that's like, oh, I'm not going to invite Sally out to dinner because all she's going to talk about is how I should give her money and what a return I should give her. That's great. There's so many different things that we can do. We don't want to be able to start to kind of push friends away from us or family away from us. A great way instead to do that is to share what you're working on. That might be simply putting that on your Instagram by simply starting to share on your Facebook, maybe even starting a little bit of like a newsletter where then people can opt in and choose if those are things that they want to start to hear about some of the projects that you work on. My Instagram, if any of you follow us over at the Becky Nova on Instagram, I kind of share everything on social media these days, but really share a lot about what I'm doing in my portfolio. I get people to reach out to me all the time about, hey, if I give you this money, would you be able to invest it? Hey, I have this fund, Becky, what can you do with it? And I actually also do private lending myself to other people. And it's the people, if somebody's kind of like reaching out to me for it, I got to be honest, like I'm usually a little bit more skeptical rather than when I see somebody out there with a proven track record that I'm like, you know what, I'm going to kind of get on board with that. I can watch, I can see what they're working on, I can see what they're actually doing. and I can move forward in that way. And I then get that control and that option. So keep that in mind if you are then looking for family, friends, and looking to do kind of that investing circle with them. A better option to kind of usually do is, instead of going to your sister being like, hey, sis, I know you just got a bonus. Why don't you give it to me to go invest in real estate? A better way to go about that is also asking, hey, I'm looking to this new project. I'm looking for 50K. Who do you know that might be looking for an investment like this? When you position it that way, that absolutely gives your sister the opportunity to say, like, hey, why didn't you think about me? I would love to do something like that. And maybe you never even knew that. But if not, it's a really easy way for that person to just be like, hey, I got a friend that might be interested, rather than having to have them then say no and then probably trying to avoid you because they might feel uncomfortable with it. So, option to kind of think about, but I hope that this gives you a few great ways to be able to get your family involved. So down in the comments, let me know what you're going to take away from this and how you're going to change how you either communicate with your partner or your kids to see if they are going to join you in your real estate investing journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode of the Lady Landlords Podcast. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. Also, if you enjoyed today's episode, please do make sure to leave us a 5-star review. 5-star reviews help other women be able to find our community and get the support that they would like in their journey. So 60 seconds of your day can actually change somebody else's. So go ahead, take a minute and do that. See you back in the Lady Landlords Facebook community.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords Podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlords.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.